Hi, I'm Morgan Hines, and I'm in the Phocuswire studio with Camilo Navarro of Wheel the World. Welcome. We're so happy to have you.
Thank you for having me here.
Yeah. So we're going to talk a lot about accessible travel today, given what you do. Can you tell me a little bit about how accessible travel has changed with technology in the last 5 years or so?
Yes. So imagine that here in the States alone, around 18 million Americans with accessibility needs are taking more than 40 million trips every single year. So those people, we know now for a fact that 80% of them are having terrible experiences when they travel. That has been growth, a 2x growth compared to the previous years, because now we have people with accessibility needs accessing to, more information. People with disabilities and accessibility needs many years ago, they weren't able to get out of their houses, but now they are able to travel more. They have access to jobs, they can go to school, they can incorporate in society, and that's growing every time more. That explains why more people are traveling.
Right.
But despite of them being traveling more, most of them are having terrible experience because they cannot access to the right information that accommodate their specific accessibility needs.
Okay.
So the market has shifted exponentially in terms of people traveling more, but still having terrible experiences.
So how has technology aided that problem, or how has it made it better in the last 5 years? Is it improving, or do you see technology as a solution to that issue today?
Yes, we see technology as the pillar of making, travel more accessible and people with accessibility needs and seniors traveling more and better. Mainly because the specific problem that affects a user with accessibility needs is that accessible information that I was describing before is critical for them to know in advance if they can go to that place. So for example, picture yourself coming to San Francisco, where I'm based, and when you access to your hotel, you start walking around the room and the floor is kind of sticky, so it's super uncomfortable to walk, and there's a lot of furniture blocking your way, so you can barely move. And then you want to get into the bed, but it's so high that you need to climb on it, and you want to use the bathroom, but the door is locked.
Right.
We could all agree that your trip is ruined. People with accessibility needs, let's say a wheelchair user, if they cannot access the right information, meaning what is the specific type of floor, and there's a thick carpet, they can barely move the wheelchair.
Right.
If the furniture, they don't know that is organized in such a way that they don't have enough turning radio, they cannot circulate throughout the room. And if they don't have the right altitude of the bed, they cannot transfer to that bed. And if they don't have the specific rolling shower, they cannot even take a shower, right?
Right.
So 80% are having those type of problems. This is why information and technology, raising that data, is the most important thing that will unlock more people with accessibility needs traveling.
Right. So where does the technology apply specifically? Can you give me a tangible example?
Absolutely. So what we created is basically an app that allows us to extract more than 250 data points of accessibility of each one of those properties, for instance. And with that information, we provide an accessibility match to those users, because our users, they create an accessibility profile and they tell us specifically what are their accessibility needs.
Okay.
So we have an algorithm that can recommend and match, the accessible information that we collected from that place in the first place with their specific accessibility needs.
Got it.
We are making that technology available not only through our platform, but also through our partners' platform, hotels, restaurants, museums, attractions, destinations in general.
Okay, cool. And where does AI play into that for you?
So as AI continues to grow, people will start having more conversation where they're going to need this type of information, accessibility data, for instance. So we are working now with a conversational AI chatbot that will allow users with accessibility needs to have a conversation using the data that we collected in the first place and using their profiles to provide the same level of match, but throughout a conversation.
Okay.
So this is how we as a company, we are taking AI as a tool using our proprietary data to provide those best experience to users with accessibility needs.
Got it. So when you think about AI on a scale outside of your business, Where are the biggest areas of opportunity for the accessible travel sector to be implementing AI to better the experience for travelers?
So I would say that AI without data is worthless. So having right information will allow you and will allow both, the AIs out there together with the partners that they're thinking about entering into the AI solutions. They will need that specific data for AI to be able to provide that user experience. So for example, if you go into ChatGPT and ask, what's the altitude of the bed of a Marriott, hotel in downtown New York, you're not going to get an answer.
Right.
Or if you say, let me know if there's a ramp like in this place or not, you're not gonna get an answer because they need that accessible information. So my recommendation to those partners is to have that accessible information in the forefront. So then AIs, they can consume that information.
Okay.
And if they cannot do it, my company can do it for them.
Okay. And how much of an opportunity area is accessible travel for the rest of the travel industry that maybe isn't offering accommodations or different things to make accessible travel more possible?
I am absolutely biased with this, of course, because I run this company. I am convinced that the world will become 100% accessible no matter what we do. And there's a very simple, fundamental reason, which is disabilities today they represent 15% of the world population. Here in the States, 20% are people with accessibility needs. And if you think somehow, this is the largest minority, which is not that much a minority if you think through that perspective, that sooner or later, every one of us, every single person that is listening to us right now will be part of as a consequence of aging. All of you will have accessibility needs at some point of your life. There's no way around it.
Yeah.
So therefore, the opportunity is that the sooner you prepare for this accessible travel, not only you're doing the right thing, but also it's a smart thing because there's a massive business opportunity.
Right.
We estimate that the market is spending $120 billion every year on accessible travel alone.
Okay. And do you see that increasing over time?
Absolutely. As population keeps aging, if you think somehow, people are getting married older, they're having less kids. And as a consequence, population is going to be represented by seniors. Like in Japan, the population of seniors is larger than the population of kids. So they're like a very interesting metric, which is that they're selling more adult diapers than kids diapers in Japan.
Wow.
So it's a trend. Like I have 2 kids and I cannot even think about having 3 or 4. Before, people were having 5 and sometimes even more. So I think that tells you a lot about how population will keep shifting towards, aging. So therefore, preparing yourself as an accessible solution, it's just a smart thing to do.
Got it. So you mentioned a lot about information and making that accessible. What else would you recommend travel brands do to incorporate accessibility into their business models?
Yes. Great question. I fundamentally believe that the world will become 100% accessible if 2 things happens. One is that the infrastructure needs to be more accessible per se, meaning that they should have better facilities. Like, for example, who is going to complain about like an accessible restroom? The accessible restroom is useful for a wheelchair user, a senior, and me when I push the stroller with my kids inside the bathroom if I need to take them into the bathroom. That's why I love accessible bathrooms, right? It's just a better design. So if the infrastructure becomes more accessible and also humans that are behind those restaurants, museums, hotels, and attractions, they are more prepared and more educated towards people with accessibility needs. We can provide the ultimate, travel experience for those users. Like, I mean, you could have the most accessible place on earth in terms of the infrastructure, but if the people are, rude and they don't know, about people with accessibility needs, that's going to be a problem and they're going to provide a bad experience for them. So having more accessible infrastructure is one, and having more education and knowledge about accessibility is the two recommendations that I would give to them.
Okay, got it. And how are you growing your platform? Can you tell me about your B2B2C strategy?
Yes.
Okay.
So the way that we're growing our platform is together with destinations. So we are a B2B2C because what we are doing is we're partnering up with destinations like New York, Miami, Seattle, Portland, to mention one of the 150 destinations that we're currently working with. And with them, what we do is we verify their accessibility information. We allow them to know how to improve not only them as destination, but also their local hotels, restaurants, museums.
Okay.
They all have access to a platform. And finally, we allow them to market that accessible information to their own audience by using our technology, our recommendation engine, our accessibility match. So they can basically provide this accessible information on their platforms, like showing, to their end users, here we are, destination accessibility verified by Will the World, and come here is the right information for you to visit us. So that's how we are growing our solution.
Got it. So you've mentioned destination and hotel partners.
Yes.
Are you looking to partner with other kinds of businesses like OTAs too?
Yes, that is something that we are looking as we keep growing our company. We ultimately want to become the data supplier of accessible information.
Okay.
So that means that the more information we keep collecting, that information we want to distribute it not only through our own systems, but also our partners' platform. And finally, OTAs. My dream would be to have this accessibility verified living in
Like
Booking.com,
badge.
in Expedia, like
Yeah.
the badge,
Yeah.
like in Airbnb even, like
Yeah.
in every single platform, so they can empower those companies to attract more people with accessibility needs and seniors to
Got
visit
it.
them.
Okay.
They're not targeting them. They're like missing that audience, and we want to empower them to attract them.
Okay. And where do you see accessible travel going in the next decade? I know that's a long period of time.
Yes, that's a great question. Ultimately, our dream as a company, success to us would be empowering every single, infrastructure, physical infrastructure, whether that's an hotel, a restaurant, a museum, an airport, like public areas, parks, like with this accessible information so people can visit them. So what I think is going to happen is that if our company succeeds, we're going to accelerate that transition, and we want to make it hopefully not in 10 years, maybe in 5 years, to have everyone more, information about accessibility. I dream of having every single conference out there, or every single event, every single place with that representation of 20% of people with accessibility needs. Like those are our grandparents, our grandfathers, like our grandmothers, that like how many trips are we missing?
Right.
That they are thinking, I cannot go there because there's too much hassle. Like I cannot walk too much, or I
Right.
cannot like move around. We want that to happen 10 years from now. I hope that we're going to have a world where we're going to see 20% of that representation out there, having a lot of fun, where people with and without accessibility needs, they can be all together having just like a blast. That's our dream.
Amazing. And as you work towards that goal or vision 10 years down the line, or maybe a little sooner, what are your priorities for 2026?
Our priorities for 2026, we want to increase the number of destinations that we're partnering with, specifically here in the States, in Canada, and Europe. So we are looking to get not to 2026, but 2027, up to 500 destinations that we want to actively work with. So those 500 destinations, we want to bring 20,000, partners, hotels, museums, attractions that are verified by our company. So that's kind of where we're going to be working as a short-term goal for the next 2 years.
Got it. Okay. And as we wrap things up, if you could fix one problem in the travel industry with the wave of a wand, what would it be?
The one thing that I would love to fix, and if that could get fixed, maybe my company wouldn't exist, which is fine, because what I really want to make is the world accessible. I want millions of people with accessibility needs travel to thousands of destinations, is have more information.
Okay.
The one thing that is limiting people with accessibility needs and seniors to explore places is the lack of information, accurate information. So what I would really suggest people and the audience that are listening to us right now is that if you were to provide more accessible information, whether you are a restaurant, a museum, an attraction, and you would just put it in your website, what do you have right now? Like, where is it? And display that information, that would be a quick win that will facilitate people with accessibility needs visiting them. Information. I think that's one of the most important things that the industry needs to fix.
Okay.
Yeah.
Got it. Great points. Well,
Yes.
thank you so much for being here.
No, thanks for having me.
It was a great discussion.
Yes. Thank you.
Thank you.